Again, I know you all have noticed the magazines in the checkout aisles, with the gorgeously thin models and their perfectly flawless skin. I guess it's no shocker that Glamour magazine itself admits that 100% of its images are photoshopped. But what if I told you that thousands of women are influenced into believing that they too could be super thin with perfect skin, just like the magazine cover, without realizing how extremely unrealistic this is? Unfortunately, this is the case, leading to many health problems and even death for some women. Millions of women across the country have negative body images due to being brainwashed by the media that a photoshopped skinny model's body weight and perfect skin are ideal. Today I'm going to persuade you to acknowledge that this is a growing epidemic in our society today. First, I'm going to tell you what the media's portrayal of the ideal woman is and how it's changed over the years. And second, I'm going to tell you what women are willing to do to themselves in order to achieve these unrealistic body weights. Lastly, what we can do to change society's perception of what the ideal woman's average weight is, and to require magazine editors to review how much of their images are photoshopped and to what degree. First, let me tell you what the magazine industry says the ideal woman is today and how it's changed. According to statistics from a Plus Models magazine article in 2010, models weigh just 8% less than the average woman. This is a photo. Obviously, she's an actress, but she was a huge fashion icon in the 1950s. But this is what the ideal woman looked like. Not what you're used to seeing today. According to that same article, women today weigh a shocking 23% less than the average woman, such as this woman. She's a Victoria's Secret model. And this is what you're used to seeing today. These are the pictures that are hung up on the refrigerator to deter women from getting that extra snack or from pulling the ice cream from the refrigerator. These pictures are to blame for influencing the way that women believe that women should dress like, eat like, and how they should look. When a model named Twiggy burst onto the modeling scene in the mid-1960s, she was admired by the fashion industry immediately. She was 5'6", only 15 years old, and 112 pounds. Natural for a 15-year-old girl. However, she was modeling clothes aimed for women of all ages. This set the stage for thin being in. The ideal figure of Marilyn Monroe's curvy size 12 changed to Twiggy's thin size 2. Models today still consider her to be an icon in the fashion industry. Today, the average woman weighs 166 pounds according to the CDC. This is a graph that shows what the ideal woman looks like. Here, what the fashion industry says the ideal woman looks like, and this is what the average woman really is. There's some interesting statistics here also. 13 million people binge eat, and the dieting industry makes $40 billion off of diet pills. So, very good. If you're in the average weight range and you compare yourself to a model who's 5'9" and a typical 108 to 120 pounds, you're on the fast track to having a negative body image of yourself. You're opening yourself up to bad habits that you feel may make you shed pounds and make you look thinner. Let's look at some of those negative consequences. Anorexia and bulimia affect millions of women across the country. According to the National Association of Anorexia Nervosa, the body type portrayed in advertising is only naturally possessed by 5% of American females. That doesn't stop women from trying to become as skinny as the media says we should look like. Women are starving themselves, taking diet pills, and forcing themselves to throw up after eating meals. The desire to achieve visible collarbones and skinny shoulders becomes an obsession. It also leads to depression, poor self-esteem, and even death. Let me tell you a story. It's a very sad story. Two women from Uruguay. They were 20 years old and 18 years old, and they were both models, and they had anorexia. Unfortunately, they died within 6 months of each other. One was 22 years old. She was doing a fashion show in Uruguay, and as soon as she got off the catwalk, she fell and died. She was on a diet for 3 months of only lettuce and Diet Coke. This is a very sad story, and this happens with models all over, all the time. A U.S. news article from January 2010 states that anorexia nervosa has one of the highest death rates in the United States. It also states that among Western women, 15 to 24 years old, 1 out of every 200 has anorexia. 1 out of 50 women has bulimia. Anorexia nervosa is also one of the highest death rates of any mental health condition in the United States. This is caused by women comparing themselves, whether intentionally or subliminally, to the models whose images they admire. When women look at these models in these magazines, what do they think? Do they think, I'm going to buy that bikini, and I'm going to bring it home, and I'm going to look just like that? Unfortunately, some do. And that's the problem. They have unrealistic expectations. They purchase that $100 bikini, they get it home and try it on, and it doesn't quite fit the way that they thought it would. How do I know this? I am one of those millions of women out there who have been a victim to the media's image of what women should look like. After comparing myself to models who I loved looking at in the magazines, I started to get down on myself and have a poor self-esteem. I worked out constantly, took appetite suppressants, and even weighed myself all the time. It wasn't fun, nor was I ever satisfied, and I was very, very hungry. I had a poor self-esteem, and I knew that I would never be. I eventually found out that I'd never be 100 pounds, nor will I have flawless skin, but that's okay. It just took me a long time to figure that out. How can we as a society make a difference in the way that the fashion industry portrays the ideal woman's body? It is important that we express to the editors of fashion magazines how unrealistic they're portraying women in their magazines. What we need to do is write our magazine editors about how unhealthy some of these women look, and to request to see more realistic examples of what women should be. This may even allow consumers to imagine themselves in the merchandise that the advertisers are selling, not just for the size zeros or for the size 2s, but for the average size woman. The Council of Fashion Designers of America implemented a health initiative in 2007. While this initiative is headed in the right direction, it's not quite there yet. According to the initiative, it requires designers to support healthy diets and exercise. They acknowledge that models in the industry have an eating disorder or will acquire one in their career. Admitting that it happens is not okay, and not all designers are on board. According to a New York Times article from February 15th of 2012, Marc Jacobs has actually refused to cooperate with the initiative. He allows teenage girls to model clothes aimed at women 50 and older. He quotes, "I do the show the way I think it should be done, not the way that somebody tells me it should be. If their parents are willing to let them do a show, I don't see any reason that it should be me who tells them that they can't." What's the problem here? He's condoning exactly what the initiative is trying to change, an unrealistic portrayal of what women actually look like in his clothes. What bothers me about this initiative is that models are not required to go to a physician for a clean bill of health, especially when it's been acknowledged by the CFDA that models have eating disorders. They should be requiring these models to get their BMI checked in order to work, and it should be within a healthy weight range. That's a step in the right direction. Without this requirement, models will be reluctant to change, and they'll continue to try to do whatever it takes to keep their thin frame. Now, the country of Israel has already done this. They've made this a law. This has been nicknamed the Photoshop law. It means that both fashion and commercial models must have a BMI of 18.5 in order to work. They have to be able to produce employers with a medical report showing that they have maintained a healthy weight 3 months prior to a photo shoot or a fashion show. Doing this in the US would be a huge step in making a difference in the modeling industry, and most importantly, it would save lives. I'm already noticing that magazines are revealing how much of their images are photoshopped, or when their images are photoshopped, I guess I should say. This needs to be made mandatory in all fashion magazines. Like I said earlier, 100% of Glamour magazine's images are photoshopped. We have a right to know to what degree. Did they add or did they take away 5 or 10 pounds? Did they completely change someone's nose or someone's chin? Creating fashion magazines that show women of different shapes and sizes would be a fresh take on advertising, such as the Dove campaign. Now, this is what we're used to typically seeing, but this is what we should be able to see. Women of all shapes and sizes, so that we could relate to these women instead of comparing ourselves to these women. It allows us a realistic image of what the average woman looks like, and it also helps improve self-esteem. Now, I've explained how the media negatively influences women's body image and what women are willing to do in order to achieve these unrealistic body weights. But most importantly, why that needs to change. Millions of women and young girls need to know that they are normal. This can be achieved by the media's promotion of what the average size woman actually is, and by the CFDA requiring models to be within a healthy BMI in order to work. Not only will this allow women of all shapes and sizes to feel good about themselves, it will also save a lot of lives. Adi Barkan, a famous Israeli fashion photographer, quotes, "The time has come to end the era of skeletons on billboards and sickly thinness all over. The time has come to think about ourselves and our children and to take responsibility for what we show them. Thin is not sexy." Thank you for your time.